But I promise here we'll have a better idea of Torb overall, because Glad start off with dive here. So we'll see a little bit of Torb into dive, and we'll kind of see why does it get as much value as it does. And this is a big thing that I kind of want to bring up is Torb gets a lot of value specifically in those tight areas, right? Especially with his new ult. But we'll see how he comes alive and manages space with his abilities based off of playing against the dive, right? So look, I'll do it like this. This is a larger map, a more open map in my eyes. Third point is a little bit more enclosed, but this is a great map to identify. Well, on these big maps where there's a lot of space, how does Torb turret really come alive? How does he actually utilize space with his ult, like his overload ability, right? Does his ult still get as much value as it did on an enclosed, on an open map compared to an enclosed area on Hanamura, like we were saying? So we'll see that, and then I'll bring you to a Koth, and we'll look at a round of Koth, and we'll kind of see, well, does it still stay the same? Because Koths are a lot more enclosed. Koths are a lot more enclosed in shorter distance, right? So you don't get to manage as much space, or it's a little bit easier to manage some space. So we will see it all. Do not worry. All right. So far, I'm not pointing out anything right now. And the reason why is because this is just a rotation from Shock. Smart rotation, by the way, from Shock. They are a brawl. So it's good to flip the map onto the enemy Glad team. This is why I'm not really focusing on it, because this is more of a macro kind of thing. I'll focus on Turret behind them. Why is Turret behind them? Simple. He wants to make it, even though it's not very close to his team, by utilizing turrets, right, in this vicinity, he can potentially deny this entire area from a flank. And you might say, well, that's not really that big. Well, look at it like this, right? How many times do you see a flanker, specifically when you walk out maybe this way, right? Hold this doorway. A lot. I'm going to be honest, I see it a lot, especially a main tank and a tracer. They will hold that area, okay? Especially when they're like pressuring here, like they'll pressure and then they'll be like, oh, I need to go to the mega. So then they'll go to the mega. And if they play the doorway here, right, like this, hey, look, there's a turret over there. So you could hold like this, and the turret will still move back in a little bit. Some of the hitboxes are bigger, right? Turret will shoot to you and shoot you, right? You try to go for the mega, turret will shoot you. You have to shoot this turret and you have to break it, or else you're going to lose a decent bit of HP, right? And that's the big thing. Turret is there to guard, protect, but also for information and to delay and buy time. Because if they keep turret up there, the flankers are going to have a harder time being able to go to that pack and have a harder time being able to kind of play in different spots, right? Do I expect this turret to be destroyed by Birdring? Probably not. Why? Because he's Sombra. I wouldn't want to destroy this turret. He changes his turret now to be a little bit closer to him, right? Turret's close to this choke. Again, it's to deny. This time compared to being, oh, well, there's a lot of people over here, right? Over here with turret, turret denies this whole area. You have to break this before you can go in, right? If you play over here, turret can still shoot you from over here, right? So you need someone to go on this off angle and break this turret. If you don't, then again, you're taking a lot of damage on an off angle relatively for free. Dive focuses on destroying the turret. From here, we see as the dive's going down, Nero is activating his overload ability, right? And you see that he's going in for shotgun. He's not going in for left click anymore. When it's a little bit more range, he'll go for a left click. But as the dive is close into his face, or his team has closed the distance onto the backline, he is going for that right click damage. Why? Because his right click damage, right, the spread is closer, and he'll deal much, much more damage. Again, it's similar to that of a Reaper. He's able to just very much burst people down. Okay? Turret goes towards point side. Do I agree with turret towards point side? Not really. I think he has enough time to set up turret somewhere else. Like he can set it up high, or he could look to set it up more so in this vicinity behind him. That way, if anyone does try to go through here, or goes through, I believe it's It's not cafe. I don't remember what it's called. I gotta look. Snacks, that's what it's called. Anywhere along there, turret will see them and be able to shoot them. He's mainly utilizing it right there just to put it out as fast as he can. From here, it doesn't look like the end of the world anyways with the turret placement. Mainly just because, sorry, as I'm saying this, I'm turning this off. The main reason why it doesn't really matter as much is because so far they're up so many people. It's very hard for them to lose this fight, right? They're up both supports in this situation. The front line from Glads are in a very poor position in terms of CDs, so it's unlikely they're going to give it up. Now he puts turret towards this right side. Why does he put it towards this right side? Well, let's look at Glads specifically, right? As you're walking in here, you have to deal with threats, right? Over here, and you have to deal with this threat over here. What is the first threat that you're going to be looking at if you're here? The singular turret on this left side, or the 5 people looking in front of you at this corner? If I was you, the number 5 looks a lot scarier than the number 1, right? So the main reason the turret's here, even though they can see it, is they have to choose who they aggress or who they pressure. In this case, it'll probably be the 5 teammates, and the turret will still just get nice little pressure on the side. Until you force these guys back, you won't be able to destroy the turret. Even if you try to go on this kind of flank, you have to fully peek the LOS of this turret to destroy it. Hence why the positioning of the turret is actually quite good, even though it looks potentially iffy, right? Alright. Consistently putting turrets close to his team, right? Do I like it? Half. I half like his turret placements. I would rather him put them in a little bit more positions where I'm guarding a side or guarding kind of a flank. I like the idea that Shock have where they're consistently putting their turrets more so in positions where they're going to fight or they are expected to fight and guard some flanks. So like for example in that first fight, right? They have to break turret first or else it doesn't work even if it's in a bit of a vulnerable spot. Turret from there could guard flank behind, but I would have rather seen a turret in this vicinity instead. Because then if he had a turret by where Twilight was and the back line, he has a turret that can protect from behind, right? Because it'll swing and you'll see anyone that comes from that doorway. Turret could also look to shoot people as they come out, right? As they come out to contest cart over here, it can look to shoot. And again, like it's in a very good thing. The only issue with turret potentially being in a position like right here is turret will body block. So that's the only reason I could potentially see why Nero wouldn't want a turret here, but I feel like it's a much better area. Utilizes the overload to get to a safer position. He wants to be with his backline. Turret's back up in 2. Let's see where he looks to put his turret. Twilight is looking one way. He puts the turret in the middle. Just in case anyone comes in here, the first thing they see is a turret. When they try to take pack or try to go for him, turret looks at both doorways here too, right? As Tracer goes in, he activates his overload. I don't think he needed to activate overload during that time. 10 seconds. Again, he's utilizing this overload specifically to force people back, right? And though he wants to take the duel on Tracer, I don't really like this here, right? So again, not very much a fan of the overload there. He's using it very much just like very like, I don't want to say instinctively or reactionarily, but he's panic using it, I find in quite a few situations. Like with that Tracer, he knows his Brig, his BAP, and himself are in that room. He doesn't need to use it. He should be utilizing it right now as they're potentially going in more open areas, right? Because it will keep him alive for longer periods of time, hold space longer periods of time, and potentially, like in this situation, he could have been pumping out and killing Muse here potentially with that, or at least getting him to half HP here. Seems like turn right now is just for building alt charge, as he will have to cool down back anyways before next fight, right? Yeah, I suppose so. Like based off of how they're looking to kind of utilize or based off a turret CD, I could see that. Like they're using the initial alt to kind of just get a little bit of extra alt charge. I feel like he's putting it in positions to, I don't want to say disrupt, but he's putting it in some positions to make it so that they have to decide what they do with it for sure. But or be less encouraged to go for a dive. But I can see your point there. I'm not very used to the Torb turret cooldown. Like 10 seconds, I think it's like 8 seconds or so. Let's see. Yeah, it's about 10 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds, like 10 seconds more so. It just feels like 10 seconds, like with his both of his abilities, mean like you have to be a lot more careful with them. But I don't know, like I could be wrong. It just feels like Nero, like I can see some of the purposes with his overload for sure, but some of them just seem very weak purposes of to use both of them, right? Because 10 seconds is a lot of time. Like 10 seconds mean you're probably gonna only use that ability maybe twice in a fight, probably once, right? Get the fight's over, so he puts the turret there to just get some pressure, build some ult charge. Nothing crazy. But I do see your point there, Mead. Alright. Let's see here. So they are set back up into this room. I would hope that he's gonna... Okay, yeah. Turret is over there. I just missed him putting it out. He has overload this time because a flanker did not go on him. I expect him to pop. Yeah. Muse comes in for a roll around. They look for a dive. This is when I like to see the overload because you saw he was holding space much more aggressively with the overload because he had the ability to do so, right? Since he had the ability to have the extra armor and movement speed and, you know, pump out a little bit more damage, he's holding his space more. That's when I want to see it. Is less so when a solo tracer is playing into his turret and him, right? Again, turret is an extra member, so like if he ever plays by a turret and one or two of these guys pop out at the same time, I'm not as scared. Maybe like if I think I could potentially I need the extra armor, like then sure I'll use it. But when you have turret and it's a like a 1v1 and you have full HP, like I wouldn't. It's a 2v1, right? It's the same thing. It's for him, it's a little bit different because he has high HP and I want to like try to hold space and try to maybe kill him like very fast. So that's why I think it's a if ball kind of goes in, you don't have to utilize you can utilize overload a little bit more because when ball goes in and he slams and he's like rolling through you, most of the time that indicates that they're going for an engagement, right? So that's why I'm a little bit less skeptical if he goes in to utilize it. Or obviously if these guys go and utilize your ult because you got to hold space, right? So we talked about the Torbjorn. We see a Torbjorn coming out here. That's another thing I want to talk about. Do we see it when they're walking in? Yes. The other thing we see though is that aside from them walking in, Glads is going for an engagement. So we're seeing a Torbjorn around and on top of his team to disregard or to discourage the Gladiator members to push forward, right? The Glad members look to still push forward, but they're forced to have to waste a trank, right? From here, we see that Nero, because his turret was destroyed there, he's utilizing his overload to protect the flank. So instead of going and helping his team with the brawl there, he allows for his team to deal with the majority of the members from Glad. He looks to cover the flank there with his overload and potentially force out Sombra or force out the Tracer, right? So he forces out Kepster. Now they're restabilizing again. Again, big thing that I want to bring into consideration here. Glad's opened this up specifically with a grab, right? They're trading at this point. Even though they opened it up with a grab, he immediately Torbalts here. They're forced to use a trank. And then they're forced to very much be discouraged from going into that fight, right? So that whole tempo thing from Glads is shut down from a simple Torbolt again, right? In their whole play, they're not able to do anything, right? So now what? What does Glads have? Like we got to look at it. Glads have this singular ultimate to try to set tempo again, right? Could it work? For sure it could work, right? Do Glads want to do it right away though? Probably not, right? Because remember, like I talked about this yesterday with this comp. This comp is yes really good for brawling and you want to kind of brawl, but you're not there to brawl really. You're there to discourage them and boop them. You're not playing a lot of the time first tempo with this specific comp from Glads. You're playing to get a lot of damage and punishment down, right? With regard to the Discord, right? And spamming them out. And then based off an ultimate, that's when you're looking to go aggressive, right? You're looking to go aggressive off a grab, off of a rally, right? Off an EMP, off mine, something to enable you to take space or play that range, force them to play the fight a little bit slower, then push up to try to take a little bit more space and a lot more punishment based off of your HP advantage or based off of your CD advantage, right? From here, this allows Shock to be able to play underneath contest the cart from underneath and push the cart. This is when Glaz looks to go forward. Q walks right into a Torb left click, right? And again, Nero popping the overload. He's popping the overload because he sees that they're looking to do an aggressive action. They're looking to brawl / dive them, right? Once Torb pops that overload, a lot of damage is pumping out because of that fire rate increase. And he's not scared because he's very mobile. He also has a lot of that extra armor, right? And he's always consistently looking in this overload against the dive to fight someone, specifically one of the divers. He's always looking to fight a ball. He's always looking to fight a tracer. He's always looking to fight a sombra. He's not ever playing just to spam, right? And that's the key thing that I would say you need to keep in mind. He's always looking to fight someone when this overload cooldown is alive in the brawl. He very, very much does not like to spam against dive, which is good. That's how he should be. He's also a sniper. Like, look at that shot, dude. Crazy. But so far, it looks good, right? Nero's playing this quite well into dive. Even though I'm not a fan of some of his turret placements, overall, how he's utilizing his overload ability majority of the time, I would say about 80% of the time, 85% of the time, he's utilizing it for a purpose. He's utilizing it to be quite aggressive with his space as well. He's utilizing to force 1v1s, which is really good against this kind of dive, right? His turrets are being put in positions to kind of assist, and it is following the guidelines that we did talk about, which is playing in the LOS of his team, right? He is putting it in the LOS of his team. The only thing that kind of discourages me about it is just he's not putting it in positions to guard flanks a little bit often than not, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world, right? I'm just trying to get double value from that turret compared to a singular value from that turret. And then his ults, right? Have we ever seen him once engage with an ultimate? Most of the time, no so far, right? He's playing it more so for countering and forcing Glaz to have to maybe use a lot of resources to get out, a lot of resources to commit, or a lot of ultimates to just be able to try to get value. Alright, kind of skip behind here. Alright. Spamming on out. Double check where this turret is. Turret is across from them in case they go for a dive. Again, positioning check for the turret. I have to go like this because Nero's not looking at his turret. Is this a good turret? Yes, because if they try to engage over here, right, which is what they're expecting based off of where the card is, number one, they have to choose about if they want to try to fight these guys or if they want to try to destroy the turret first, right? You could do two actions at once. Most teams will not because they're going to look to be explosive with this dive, right? They're not trying to slow down their dive. So overall, that you have to spend extra time to try to destroy this turret. Number two is if they do commit here, turret's over here, in order to kill it, you need to swing past this again, right? They can't simply destroy this. You have to, if you want to destroy this, realistically look for the turret and destroy it, right? It's not a very easy turret spot to spam. So again, good turret placement from Nero. He creates a mini crossfire with his team as well. Question is his turret disabled while this is happening? I don't think it is. It is not because the EMP happens over here, it looks like. No, sorry, it happens inside. So this is good. Turret also survives here. Very good. So as this is happening, right? Turret is behind. What is turret shooting? Turret's shooting a Zarya coming from behind. Now, I want you to look at the turret HP. He does not have personal up anymore. I want you to see what this turret discourages from him to do. Remember how I said like he's gonna be forced? Like once you turn here, you have a choice. You either have to deal with this turret or you don't deal with this turret. Since he has low energy on the side of space, and since space is walking up here, right, with low energy, and no personal, he can't ignore this turret. He has to fight that turret. And you see the value a solo turret has there. The solo turret zoned a Zarya. A Zarya, okay? Is that great? Yeah, of course, that's value. Look how much damage that turret took too. 126? Half its HP, that's it. A solo turret, again, disrupted a Zarya from being able to be more aggressive there. Could you imagine, like, seeing that in a game and being like, wow, like, I got outdone by a turret. Like, I couldn't. That's unfortunate. Like, that sucks. But it just shows you how important for dive destroying a turret is. You need to, before you go very aggressive, you need to make sure that you find the turret and you destroy the turret. If you do not find the turret, sure, you can assume that it's with the team. But first and foremost, when you have this much mobility, look for the goddamn turret and destroy it. You have control most of the time about all the space around you. And the way Nero has been putting his turrets, very rarely has he actually been putting it in his team, right? He's only been putting it in his team when he's finishing a rotation. They were already done a rotation. They were in that room for quite a long time, right? Here is a perfect example. They're not able to really go anywhere. Yes, they are stuck here, but they're stuck here mid-rotation, right? They're stuck here because they can't really go anywhere else. So he can't put his turret in a very good position, a super position power play like he did before. So he has to put his turret more with his team so that it reaches the guidelines that I said. It's in the LOS of his team, right? It's in the LOS of him. The turret can be protected a lot more with his team being there too, right? But overall, it's again a big thing that you have to keep in mind, right? From here, we see a window to help keep the team healthy and alive. He uses the overload to just survive a little bit more. And now he has another ult. Is he going to be aggressive with it or is he going to be passive with it? He's not going to use it at all because they're already winning the fight. That was a trick question. And now from here, we have a Torbjorn, we have a rally as well, right? So we see him, again, he's going aggressive. He knows that he's up numbers. He knows that the people mainly alive are people that he can duel 1v1. And now, this is the first aggressive Torbjorn that we have seen from him. Out of the 4 Torbjorns that he has done, this is the first aggressive Torbjorn. And why? He wants to make it so that they can't do anything, right? They can't walk out of spawn without taking free damage. Right? Shu is forced to trank out now because of that Torbjorn, right? Being by the spawn. And from here, they're just forcing the fights onto point, right? By the way, when Muse walked out there, Muse took half his HP. We can go back and I'll show you. But this is like, again, right? Torbjorn is underrated by a lot of people, right? A lot of people. It is a strong ass ultimate, right? Look at this. Muse has no armor. Shu has half HP. Like, so sorry. Muse did not have half HP. Shu was about to die. Like, he was close to half HP at that point. He probably would have died if he kept walking out. As for Muse has no armor, which means he's forced to use the shields faster and everything else under the sun, which is not what he does not want to happen, right? Without armor, remember, tanks burn down a lot faster because they're just normal characters with normal HP, and they have a fatter hitbox, so they'll be hit much faster, right? So it's a great ult from Nero. In terms of turret location destroyed, just in a very non-important location, I would say. Yes, this turret guards them from behind, but Nero put this up last fight. He just did not take it down. If I was Nero, I would have put it probably more towards here, so he could still see the LOS of his team. It could shoot anyone over there, and it still protects from the flanks over here, right? But he focused more so on getting his ult down in the spawn and looking to potentially get some kills with his overload. So again, like, it's not terrible that he didn't get his turret in a good spot. I would love for him to micromanage and put it in a position like that so he could get double value, but he does, in my opinion, a more important action, which is putting the ults into their spawn to make it harder for them to walk out. Pretty good. So, we've now seen it against more of a bunker comp. We've seen it against a dive on a more open map, right? We'll see it a little bit on defense here because if I'm not mistaken, they started off on defense. So we'll look at a little bit on defense and then I'll go into a call. Then again, like I said, I'll take a little bit of time, answer some questions, talk about some things, and then we'll go into concept review. All right. Okay. Defense-wise, they start off up top. They immediately look to drop. Why do they start off up top? Well, they see if they can stay there, right? If they didn't get booped off there, I would assume that they would probably stay there and just like look to kind of rush them right in front, right? Remember, there is no speed here. So they could have potentially gone for a rush here because they would have zoned the back line really, really hard, right? So Overall, I'd be okay with a decision like that. Instead, they are discouraged to do so. In terms of turret location, he puts turret over here. Why doesn't he put turret over here? Why doesn't he put turret over here? Well, or why doesn't he put turret over here? This side, I can't answer that question for now, right? But here, why not here? His team is placed already over top. There is no need for a turret up there, right? So that washes that. Why not over here? Well, it's simple. If they do somehow make it through here, which they should not because the whole team's here to disrupt this rotation, it can easily be destroyed, right, by this doorway. And what I mean is, like, I'll show you, right? Right when you walk out of this doorway, right? See how turret's over here? Your team will not be fighting them, right? Look at this team. You have no one on this team that will look to fight a Tracer or a Sombra that potentially goes destroys this turret over here. And what they have is one, a Mega behind them, and two, they have a corner here. They have a big wall. So what could they do? They see a turret right in the middle. They LOS. They peek back out and shoot. LOS. Peek back out, shoot. LOS. Peek back out and shoot, right? That's exactly what they would probably do with turrets over there. Hence why he puts the turret here. Turret can see this location. You have to wide peek this wall in order to see it, right? And on top of it, if his team is playing towards this back corner, you cannot destroy this turret as easily, right? Because you have the team to pressure, and then you have turret to pressure you, and the team can look mainly just forward, right? Because the turret will be protected by the bodies of your team. Again, why isn't it on the left? I would assume that the reason why is because they don't really care even if there are people on that side, they should be able to see it. On top of them not really caring, I would assume that having turret here is more valuable for them because if they do decide to go for a dive onto shock in this situation, turret can be another way to absorb the aggression and deal a lot of damage out. So again, that's the big reason why I'd say they're not worried about putting turret on the flank here because they're not going to be able to capitalize on turret on the flank, right? And since they don't have speed, putting turret on flank here is not the best because they're not going to be able to do anything with that information, right? Even if they try to walk on the backline who's maybe over here, the backline can easily cut out because they, again, no speed from shock, right? They also do not have any members that are very mobile. Their most mobile member actually on their team is Troy, which kind of goes to show you don't want your diva also to be doing that, running after a flanker, because he could potentially run into a 2v1, right? You don't know where Sombra is at any times, or at all times, I should say. Okay, Nero now changes the turret, and he's guarding the flank now with Troy in his turret here, okay? This is fine, and the reason I say this is fine is because right now, look at what Nero's doing. Nero isn't even looking at his team at that time, because he sees his team is positioned over here. He wants to force out the flankers with his turret. So he's taking a 2v2 with his turret, pretty much. That is why he's not too concerned. Troy is over there to assist, but this is why he moves his turret location so he can utilize it to help him fight the flankers off, compared to allowing the flankers to go in and focus on the front line. Alright. Be back up here. I feel like I'm like missing something because like alright, maybe not. Okay, so walk out. He's now spamming tanks because he's forced out. Remember, he forced out both DPS. Caster has low blinks and he saw him use at least 2 to 3 blinks, right, as he's running out through the mega. In terms of the left side, they saw Birdring use Translocator. That's why he was not concerned and he moved a little bit more forward. He's not using Overload, right? Well, it's simple. He's not using Overload because he has no one to fight, no one to kind of take the 1v1 on. He wants to save it so that he can fight people, right? Either brawl them or he can look to just simply, again, just go to specifically kind of force a 1v1 against a flanker, right? Because that will be his tool to utilize and win or go even against those flankers, right? This time he sees the turret gets destroyed, so he is shooting and pressuring, right? But at the same time, he's looking specifically behind. He has a great shot onto Birdring. He pops to Overload in case there's somebody else over there as well, or in case he doesn't hit that shot and he wants to kind of close distance or kind of get a little bit more fire rate down, right? And now he's just holding this left. So as you can see, Nero is consistently, and going into the overhead view, Nero is consistently looking to hold this position when Shock is holding up top, or holding to kind of pressure onto point. Why? Because he's just protecting them from here. He doesn't have to protect them, and he also protects them from here too, right? He can spam very much ahead with his team and support his team that way, but he can also support his team by supporting his turret over here and being able to force out flankers or negate flankers to want to go very aggressive. They have to go through Nero. He can also potentially spam over here if he sees anyone coming from this way, right? And he will again protect the pathway. If they try to go this way, they have to run into Nero. Nero is acting like the ultimate um the ultimate bodyguard, yes, but like, do you know how when you cross the street you have the crossing guard where it's like stop and go? He literally is in a perfect position to control like one, two, not really this third lane, but mainly these two lanes. So he can always go over here and he'll look at the flanker and be like, "Stop! You can't go here. Like I'm here. Like you need to wait. There's like ongoing traffic here." So then it's like, okay, well I can't go. So this is where it's really important that Glads understand that, and based off of where he's looking, that will determine if this side can go or this side can go, right? If he's looking around this vicinity, that backside can go, or they should be able to go a lot more frequently. If not, then and he's looking towards that side, this side should be able to go. But then again, this is why turret is very important because turret is over here. Turret makes it so that there's another like stopping guard or like crossing guard there. Like they have to respect that turret and destroy it first, right? And this is why Torb is really strong in terms of how Shock are holding this, right? Given Shock's position, I like turret on point to be honest. I can see core very hard to kill pre-fight, can cancel Shock attacks or pressure ball. Although I like to try to wasting 10. Yeah, honestly, like it. I understand your point where like turret on point will get you a lot more damage and like pressure the ball and stuff like that. But Nero is literally playing the ultimate like wasting of time. Like he's just trying to waste so much time from the flankers and try to fight them and duel them, like to a point where he could win a duel or he delay it so long that they just can't even go for the dive, right? Like the zoning from Shock here from one player, technically two if you count the turret, are zoning two members of Glads. And it's completely shutting down the dive from them as well. And the most important part is shutting down the first tempo dive. Remember, like Shock against this team in the first map, they struggled because they were going so fast tempo. Nero himself is shutting down how fast it can go because of Torb, because of his turret. It's honestly crazy. Again, you see them go for the dive here, right? He pops the overload. He's positioning himself in a better position because they're not looking to go fight. Turret in a vicinity here, instead of protecting from the flankers, he's repelling the dive, getting a little bit extra damage out. We see a Noon to start to walk up and zone out. Again, Nero doesn't really care. Nero's turret is looking behind. Nero is looking to guard that one side that we were talking about, right? While the rest of the team is pressuring forward. They have an ult this time. Nero's looking to utilize it in an aggressive tendency, right? They walk up, forcing them all the way back, and it's allowing the rest of Shock to kind of just walk forward, right? This is great to see on the side of Nero. Like this is what, third time that we've seen him do a very aggressive ultimate here. And again, he's always putting the turret in LOS of his team. Is never anything very, very protect, or not always protecting the flanks, right? Sometimes it's in the spur of the moment when his turret's down or he has a turret available. He's just using it so that he can get extra damage from when they dive, right? Crazy, crazy. I mean, if Glads can get their DPS in position, they really can't commit. Yeah, pretty much. It just goes back to destroying the turret, right? Like, all you have to do is, if you're Glads playing against this, instead of going first tempo, you need to just destroy turret before you try to posture for a dive. If you destroy turret and turret's on cooldown, that's a less of a threat that you have to deal with, right? But if you're noticing, Glads aren't even like looking to play that slow right now, right? Like Glads are just trying to brute force their way through every single time. And if they just destroy the turret, they have a 10-second window that they can go for an aggressive dive, but it's just not happening. And that just goes to show you what I was talking about during the view party, right? Is Glads, if only Glads adapted, they would have won. And they did adapt at that last map. You saw they adapted. They played the map really well. They didn't go first tempo too often. They played quite a bit slower against this composition, right? And that's why Glads was successful at the end of the day. But this is a key thing, right? Like, if you're Shock, and you're abusing the fact that Glads wasn't adapting at all throughout the whole Countdown Cup regular season, they're getting shut down pretty much from a single turret because a turret is discouraging them to go that first tempo. So now, or it should discourage them, right? And it's slowing them down so much that even when they try to go first tempos all the time and try to do these burst engagements, it's just not working. Like, what is it gonna do? I hope this isn't converting you to the Church of Torb. Oh my goodness gracious. Not the Church of Torb, man. Anything but that. Nah, I'm just joking. I know a Torb guy. Don't worry. Aside from Carter, I got the tech. I know a Torb guy. Don't you worry. But from here, like, they give up the point, right? Caps are hitting an incredible stick to kind of convert that in. So even though, like, they lost that, again, turret placement, how is he placing turret? At the start, when he has time, he's placing it to deny the sides, right? He's denying the angles, and then he's utilizing it to potentially help him kind of take those duels, right, in a favorable position. Now we see Glads are changing it up. They're playing more of a spammy style with a brawl kind of a variation with a Mei. So they can look to disrupt or utilize a wall to kind of take more space, or they can utilize a wall to split up someone and kill them and burst them down, right? So instead of Nero like guarding the flanks now he's stuck to playing a brawly kind of style now. He has to play a little bit more with his team in this specific fight. So I would expect him to go very aggressive with this Torbolt when he can. And he's looking for it, right? He's looking for them to drop so he can just look for a Torbolt. He's not using it in any other purpose aside from going aggressive potentially. And you see, right when they drop, he's putting down the Torbolt. They're rallying. They're looking for a brawl. For right now, they have to play a little bit more spammy because they couldn't close that distance based off of the angles that Skewed had, and I'm pretty sure Birdring had. But again, he approached that the best he could in that situation. I think he played that relatively well. And now, Torb is gone. There is no more Torb on this map, right? So yeah, that is Torb in a more open kind of style. Defense attack. A little bit more in terms of an escort kind of thing against a dive.